The Nutrimedical Report, and we have John talking about NUTRIODINE. John, I'm so excited about NUTRIODINE in terms of what it can do for people, and it is our top NutriMed out of 200 plus NutriMeds. It's the most important of all our NutriMeds that we have ever been able to market, and I'm really pleased that you're the first scientist ever to make it, the first engineer ever to make the possibility of this amazing mitochondrial resuscitation, anti-pathogenic, and the ability to get rid of all halides, which are probably the worst toxins you can imagine, halide toxins. Just fill us in terms of the latest science in terms of how the plasma physics of monoatomic iodine is compared to getting rid of fluoride, chloride, or bromide, which are basically, by their basic chemistry, they have a stronger electrophilic bond. But when you turn it into the higher energy monoatomic energized form, Tesla activated form, it's able to displace, protect the mitochondria, stimulate mitochondriogenesis, making new mitochondria. And it does so many things, as I'm just going to run down through the list here first. It helps synthesize thyroid hormones, preventing both hyper and hypothyroidism. It reverses those. It supports apoptosis, which means one of the primary things to remodel tissues. The primary, most active apoptosis is during fetal development, and also as an adult, if you're trying to heal tissues, you have to get rid of old damaged cells and organelles. It activates hormone receptors to prevent certain forms of cancer. It protects ATP and high-energy NADH production. It prevents fibrocystic breast disease and endometriosis and other disorders. Helps stop polycystic disease of the kidneys, etc. It supports protein synthesis. Stops all stealth pathogens, molds, fungi, parasites, malaria. It supports the immune function in natural killer cells. It gets rid of halide toxins, fluoride, chloride, and bromide. It regulates estrogen production and male hormone production. It's mucolytic. It breaks down mucus. It neutralizes hydroxyl ions and hydrates cells. It makes your brain smarter because it increases astrocyte activation form of neural networks. It's important for reversing the damage to mitochondria that causes heart failure and hypertension, which is basically a failure of mitochondria in your blood vessel walls. It supports normal pregnancy and fetal development of the brain. It's the most important thing. It is used to reverse many illnesses, including things like cancer, fibrocystic breast disease, Alzheimer's, syphilis, skin lesions, chronic lung disease, cretinism, which is iodine deficiency in the fetus, and goiter. And it can be used to help heal bed sores, wounds, third-degree burns, restoration of growth of tissues, diminishing tissues, scarring, etc., keloid formation, Dupuytren's contracture, Peyronie's disease, which is what Bill Clinton had, which is a contracture of his penile shaft. So it's just amazing what NutriODINE will do. There's really nothing like it. And when we combine it with mitothyroid and selenium cruciferate Minerals Plus, you can resurrect your thyroid function, even if you've had radioiodine or subtotal thyroidectomy. It's the most important cause of brain dysfunction and heart disease, is all due to, I call, hypometabolic disorders. Broda Barnes proved it's not, I like a broader view of what hypothyroidism is. They're all what's called hypometabolic states, like I call TRS, or thyroid resistant syndrome. So you don't necessarily have to have anti-thyroid antibodies, but if you've damaged your thyroid gland with a previous viral infection, like a gland virus or adenovirus, or you've had thyroiditis where you have anti-thyroid antibodies, or they give you radioiodine because you had a thyroid nodule, or you subtotal thyroidectomy where you have part of your thyroid removed, the NutriODINE will reverse that. So what makes NutriODINE so amazing is its higher energy state. Tell us about that. How do you induce that higher energy state?
Tesla fields, and we literally pull the molecule into atoms, and it is that atom that NutriODINE has the strength, an additional energy level not found in the iodine molecule or the iodide ion, but only found in the NutriODINE Tesla-activated iodine. And what happens is it's able to release that energy when it touches a parasite or a virus or a bacteria in the body, and the release of that energy disables or destroys the parasite or the virus or bacteria or fungus. Even though it may be many times its size, that explosion of energy is enough to disable it or to wound it in a way that it's no longer a threat. Hence the reason that using a NUTRIODINE with illnesses of huge problems like malaria, chikungunya, dengue fever, things like that would take many pills and days to get over. The NUTRIODINE can really get in and affect it right away. So the energy is released because of the way it is constructed, the fact that it's produced in a Tesla field.
Yeah. Well, what happens is people don't realize that everything in the universe is governed by plasma physics. Someone over the weekend sent me something about the Keshe Foundation, and to be honest with you, what they did was pretty rudimentary plasma physics. The fact is that the physical dimensions of our universe have 5 dimensions, not 4. Magnetic fields are embedded in what's called the Higgs field. Magnetic fields are part and parcel of time-space, which is the 4th dimension. The Higgs field are bosons, basically, where the wormholes that connect across the galaxy are the Higgs field. And what happens is when you put things into a higher energy state, they're able to displace other halide molecules. They're able to actually regenerate tissues, and they raise the tissues to a higher what's called redox. Now, all disease requires what's called a low redox state. So as soon as you start using NUTRIODINE and your tissues get to higher redox state, you can't support stealth pathogens, the accumulation of biotoxins, the epigenetic switching on and off genes that causes cancer, and the presence of or suppression of specific genes to actually express your full genome. So as soon as you start taking NUTRIODINE, people say, look, I'm smarter, my hair is growing better, my liver functions are improving, my diabetes is coming under control, my peripheral neuropathy is healing, my chronic pain syndrome is getting better. We've had people that just started on NutriDine alone before we even had all our other supplements, and they all start raving about how it's doing so many things to their body, which when I first heard about it, I thought, this sounds crazy, but it's true. And everything from even stopping the radiation effects of cell phones to blocking Fukushima Daiichi, it's not just radioiodine. This protects your mitochondria and mitochondriogenesis from all the radiotoxins are protected because ultimately, whether it's strontium, cesium, thorium, or tritium, the damage to the cells and tissues, as a found in common pathway, is basically damage to mitochondria. And if your rate of making new mitochondria is stimulated by NUTRIODINE and the other 7 trace minerals you need to have, which is our Minerals Plus and Vitamin Mineral Max, as you start to actually resurrect your mitochondria, the problem is corrected.
Yes.
So
it really is. It is amazing. We still work with our missionaries in Zambia. We work with the doctors in India, and they are using it every day to treat a myriad of minor problems or major problems. They work with the diabetics and the foot amputations. Those things they find that NUTRIODINE just really works. It helps to heal the body, heal the infections.
Yeah,
and,
I tell people to put it on wounds, burns, to put diluted versions of it in their sinus, in their hydrofloss machine that reverses the charge to tear the plaque off their teeth, the hydrofloss, to put it in their Sinupulse Elite for sinuses, to put it in their Omron or the Blues Clear Tip on the what's called the Sinupulse Elite for inhalation of the lungs. You put it in diluted drops in saline, and you can use Sinu Air powder when you're using it for that. But just amazing. So stay right there. John will be back in a minute. If you have any questions about NutriDine, there is no comparison to any other NutriDine, any other iodine marketed anywhere in the world than our NutriDine. It is absolutely remarkable. No comparison, and this is anti-pathogenic mitochondrial resuscitation, radiation protectant, cellular energetics. I tell people, do call in. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Don't be afraid. Don't feel intimidated. There's no such thing as a stupid question. There are stupid answers, though, and there are people that make all kinds of conclusions or statements that are not based on reality. And people have to realize it's based on 3 things. Really good observation, inductive and deductive logic, and scientific tests with a null hypothesis. And so when you do testing with NUTRIODINE, you can see a different spectral pattern on spectral analysis using nuclear magnetic spectroscopy. You see a difference in the physiological response when you give it to people, where immediately they notice their energetics change and you kill pathogens off. Like literally, we pull people out of malaria, stop third-degree burns, turn off mitochondriogenesis problems, like, for example, congestive heart failure or hypertension, which, again, there's two major issues going on: lack of nitric oxide generation and mitochondrial dysfunction in the artery walls in the heart. And when hypertension occurs in congestive heart failure, or if you have hypometabolic disorders that cause plaque, it's simply caused by oxidative stress caused by mitochondrial dysfunction. And if you resurrect someone's mitochondria, they literally can live forever. You live as long and as healthy as your mitochondria are, and if your mitochondria degrade quickly, you're going to live a very short life. And of course, there's a lot of reasons now where people's mitochondria, or what I call the mitochondrial apocalypse, has already happened. Fukushima, fluoridated water, chlorinated, brominated compounds in their food. For example, years ago, they were using iodine in bread. And they decided that it was a good idea back in the 70s to switch from iodine-based supplements to using brominated salts as a thickening agent along with gluten actually in breads. And most people realize just how dangerous this is to the human body and to the mitochondria. The same way as there's a lot of fluoridated salts that are drugs that are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Most people don't realize that Celex and Prozac are all fluoridated salts. So they go directly to the caudate and putamen nucleus and the basal nuclei of the brain, including the pineal gland, that calcifies the magnetite particles and literally cuts off the cord of living waters connecting your soul or your mind to your physical, I call sensory pod, called your brain. Your brain is not your mind. Your mind exists in hyperspace. It's actually equivalent to your soul. And if people want to decalcify their pineal gland and make sure they achieve the proper expression of their physical and their spiritual epigenetics, they have to take NUTRIODINE, Indiamese, and our minerals, which is Vitamin Mineral Max Minerals Plus, and topically, of course, the MG12 products, as well as Indiamese to maximize nucleoplasm, mineral concentration. But each mineral has what's called a chakra frequency. So if you could actually look at the different frequencies of the chakras of the body in terms of energy metabolism in Indian or Chinese medicine, the primary chakra energy, the highest energy field, actually is the spectral frequency of the monatomic iodine, which is at the pineal gland. Interesting, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, and people need to know that the chakra frequencies of magnesium and zinc, etc., that each particular key mineral in the body, like magnesium, has a chakra frequency. And those chakra frequencies actually determine the energy metabolism, the epigenetics, the activation not only of physical but higher dimensional realities of what we are as a being. We're a physical being, we're also a hyperdimensional being, and we're also an eternal being because we're made in that tripartite kind of manner. And you can't express your physical genetics. We were going to be talking about this. I'm hoping to bring on Michael, our contact in China that brings in our QRMA, our ATLRIS, and our Metatron device. And also we're going to have the scientists Michael Chen and Dr. Wang from China that work with Dr. Nestorov at the Nonlinear Institute in Moscow. People need to understand I'll be working with them to help develop the next generation of these diagnostic devices that work on plasma physics of the hyperdimensional reality of what we are and the nonlinear non-locality of, I call quantum hyperdimensional physics. And people say, well, that sounds like a big mouthful of words, but the reality is it exactly fits exactly with what the scriptures say in the Bible. It's exactly what the metaphysician, the greatest man who ever lived on earth, who's the incarnation of God himself, Yeshua HaMashiach, but he also said, when I return, you shall be as I am. So he's really saying, the good news is, you're not qualitatively different than me. God is trying to incarnate in you as well and create a higher level of you. And what I'm trying to do is bring forward not only a higher level of physical, but also spiritual health. And NutriODINE is part of that process. It's part of the process of making, somebody sent me a little clip on the Keshe Institute by a gentleman born in 1958 that developed works in plasma physics, has a world peace treaty, and he's presented to the Pope and so on. But, you can't present things to the people based on will, like you're saying, I will do all these things for the peace treaty. It has to be based on spirit. And spirit is a hyperdimensional reality. It has to be based on an intention field of a higher level of yourself. So if people walk around as zombies because they're eating toxic, genetically modified food, fluoridated water, chlorinated compounds and brominated salts in their bread, why do we expect human beings to act anything more than zombies? It's not possible. You're dealing with people that are sick. And part of the reason why people are disconnected from reality and not taking responsibility is that they're actually sick and they're being poisoned. And if you poison their mitochondria and you poison their brain, you calcify their magnetite, the particles in their brain, you disconnect their brain. You're not using, as Bradley Cooper said when he did the movie a few years ago, Limitless, if you're using a tiny portion of your brain, why do you expect human beings to act as a, if you want to call it, an image of the Most High God, as God's representative on earth, as a new kind of forerunning human being that can survive the singularity of artificial intelligence, life extension, and technologies that bring us across space to contact galactic civilizations across the universe? Mankind as it currently exists is not fit for that. And what I try to present to people is they have the options to make the choices so they can preserve their health and they can start, as I say, if for every year people live now, they will live 3 more months. So if you live from now to next year, you actually have potential life extension of 3 months. If you live 10 years from now, every year you live, you'll actually live an extra year. And pretty soon, for every year you live, you'll live 10 to 20 years. In other words, we're reaching the point what's called the life extension singularity, where you'll only die of stupidity, arrogance, ignorance, and doing stupid stuff like wearing a bat suit and jumping out of a skyscraper and figuring you're going to survive when you get a downdraft rather than an updraft. Human beings only die of war, pestilence, and stupidity. People won't die of aging. Aging will be a thing of the past. And by the way, they did a study on aging, and if you had a current world, which is quite dangerous, even if there was zero senescence, the average person would live to be 475 years. They wouldn't live forever. They'd live only 475, and only 1 person in 10,000 at our current level of danger living in this current world would live to be 10,000 years old. Interesting, isn't it? So wow. You don't get to live forever, even if you don't have zero senescence, unless you have a peaceful world where stupidity, arrogance, and the pestilence and war and toxicology is not present. So we need to have a world that has a change in the soul of the planet. So it's not just will, it's spirit that counts, and that spirit comes from detoxifying your brain from fluoridated, chlorinated, brominated compounds. These are the most toxic thing besides radiotoxins that can destroy your DNA and your epigenetics. Now, you might hear other people who present and think that they know these things. There is no one on radio or TV on this planet that knows more about this than I do. And I'm not boasting this. I'm telling you this, what I call medically and epigenetically and spiritually. I'm bringing a message to you of what Jesus said at the time of the end. We will bring to you a great blessing. And one of those blessings is the Edgar Casey monatomic energy activated iodine to change your life, change your spirit, change your mind, and change the trajectory of your health. We'll be back in a minute. Stay right there. And welcome back. We have Dr. Bob Dennis, PhD engineer, talking about micropulse. And actually, I got my little micropulse device working on me right now. Of course, I can't put it up too close to my microphone, or it goes click, 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 because a little pulse magnetic field. But it's a very low energy, but it's tuned to your cells. And he's done an amazing job over 25 years getting just the right frequency. I call it the Goldilocks zone of epigenetic frequencies, the polar magnetic Schumann resonance frequencies that stimulate healing, pain reduction, regeneration of tissues. When you have the right signal and substance, like our Mountain Red Velvet and our Nutrimeds, you can actually regenerate your tissues, stop pain, and heal your tissues. It's just amazing. And this little device, I just love this little micropulse. It's so much more advanced than the Somapulse, and so elegant the way it's all designed. You put a lot of work into this, didn't you, Dr. Bob?
Yeah, I work on it continuously. It's, every about a year to 18 months we make enough significant improvements that we have to come out with a new version, and this is our latest model, the A9, which is actually about 3 years beyond the Somapulse. That was about the model from about 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Now, so tell us a little bit more about the history of the micropulse, and so people haven't heard before, and then can review what it does to the tissues, how it works.
Okay. Well, I started doing this research for NASA back in 1996, 97, and it's turned out to be some relatively well-known research now on the internet. Anybody who talks about the NASA PEMF, NASA TDEMF, that was the research that I did with NASA. in Johnson Space Center starting in 1996, 97. And the research then was a very, very early phase to see if we could do anything with magnetic fields to control the growth of human-derived stem cells in culture. And we did a series of experiments that showed very robustly that we could cause a tremendous amount of increase in gene expression for growth and repair in human neural cells in culture. So we were able to demonstrate that. And then they kind of, at NASA, things changed, and, it's constantly turning over. So I just actually carried it forward for the remaining 17, 18 years and have developed it myself and have optimized it really for orthopedic injury and chronic pain for really reducing inflammation in tissues. And so every, year and a half or 2 years, I actually improve the efficiency, reduce the price. As you know, we've dropped the price over $1,000 just in the last 3 years. So it's down to under $400 now with your listeners. And it's about 35 to 40% more energetically efficient than the Soma Pulse. It's actually turns out to be 99.8% more efficient. So it's 500 times more efficient than the energy pulses we were using in the NASA research back in the late 90s and early 2000s. So it's come a long way.
Yeah, it really is amazing. Now, what I've seen basically with the micropulse, I'm going to go head to toe, is whether you've got a traumatic head injury, a baldness, middle ear problems, like you can put the little micropulse over your middle ear, and you can actually see it reverse vertigo along with our nutraceuticals like Brain Power, Cognition Plus, Neurogen, and Nutrifos, etc. Cell Detox Glutathione. You can see it reverse plaque in your arteries in the neck. You can see it reverse pain in the cervical spine where people have got cervical root problems and dural nerve sleeve inflammation. And most people don't realize that most of the time it's actually not an anatomic compression. It's actually a chemical irritation with tumor necrosis factor alpha, IFN gamma, and other inflammatory cytokines in the dural nerve sleeve. The same way as whether it's over the chest and you're trying to reverse congestive heart failure, liver detoxification, abdominal pain, pelvic pain, let's say endometriosis, knee problems like arthritis in the knee, menisci, joint problems like prepatellar bursitis, peripheral neuropathy. I mean, there is literally no health condition that can't be improved with a micropulse. You need to use the right signal, and I'll often use both micropulse and lumen photon and combined with our NutriMeds, and people get an amazing healing. This little device is so portable too, and I think you have links where people can get little Velcro kind of things to snap around it and put it on a belt or in their pocket and put the pads. I've rigged a few little trick things. What I found is actually you can get these little suction cups that you can actually rig through a little plastic thing where you can tape the little electrodes to a piece of plastic or a thick plastic bag, and you can get little pins that have a suction cup in it. Actually put the suction cup on your skin so you don't have to tape it and then rip the tape off in the hair. You can just pop the edge of the suction cup and it'll come off your skin. So you can kind of suction cup it to your chest or your back, and or you can use one of these Ace wraps or what's called a Coban, 3M Coban, or Johnson & Johnson, kind of one of these wraps. And the electrodes are very discreet. I mean, you can put it around your knee, your back, your chest, any area that's giving you trouble. Let's say a shoulder capsulitis, slap the electrodes up there and just go about your business. Just do what you're doing. In fact, you can even use it while you're exercising. That's what's neat. This is so flexible, these little electrodes. You just go about your business and just do what you want to do. And other than having a few wires hanging out of you, if you got shorts on, she said, "What do you got up there?" "Well, I've got my little micropulse on." And they'll get real curious and say, "What are you doing that for?" I said, "Well, it's regenerating my knee when I take my supplements and I take the signal from this. My knee joint is getting all healed." And they say, "You're kidding." And I said, "Well, this is the 21st century. This is 2015. You have a micropulse and Dr. Bell's supplements now, and you have the signal and substance. You're going to regenerate." It's mind-boggling, but it's true now, isn't it?
Well, it seems to be. I mean, the more we study it, the more research we do. I had started as a great skeptic, thinking, well, there's no way that you could benefit so many different tissue systems throughout the body. But it turns out that the mechanism, so far as we can tell, is pretty much the same. It gets the right genes being expressed, and it turns off inflammation. With those two things, the cells are primed to do what they naturally want to do, which is repair and maintain tissue in a healthy state. So there's your signal. Now, of course, you need the substance. You got to have the right materials, the right chemicals, the right molecules in place. If you have those two things, cells across the body are all very similar genetically. Certainly within an individual, they're virtually identical. It's the epigenetics that are different. And so if you modify the signal to put the cells in the right state, if you think of cells as being in a state machine, they can either be in a state of degeneration and decay and injury, or they can be in a state of growth and repair and regeneration. And we basically tell them to get into a state of growth, repair, and regeneration, give them the right substrate, and the cells do the rest.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that people should realize is now you don't resort, firstly, never ever take non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Avoid steroids like the plague because it immediately stops collagen regeneration. And when you do have a problem, I tell people clean out the joint. Go to see an orthopedic surgeon and have them do a arthroscopic clean out of the joint to get rid of the fibrillated debris that's calcifying. And then deburr down the joint surface and put, if necessary, Hylan, which is a 3 million molecular weight polymer that's called Hylan. It's made from rooster combs. Your body will start regenerating the cartilage and hydroviscous layer if you take our joint performance tendon mender, collagen max, and mountain red velvet. You take those four and you're going to regenerate. But then now you have the signal of the micropulse. You slap that around your knee. I have a right knee that I had an old injury. And if I really push it, sometimes it'll flare, but I slap on the micropulse, and within a few minutes to half an hour, it's gone. And I'm exercising, doing full squats with powerlifting on my vibrational platform, because I do what I call VibraFit, which I consider this form of exercise is the least traumatic and the most powerful, is VibraFit, where you're actually working on a triplanar vibrational platform, and then also doing weightlifting, tension with body elastic bands, and I have an athletic bar, which is one of the gymnastic bars behind and above me, bolted into the ceiling. And using this amazing micropulse, you can actually regenerate your joints, turn off the pain, and it stops any delay in activity. So you go up and down stairs, you do anything you want to do, pain's gone, and away you go. It's amazing. I love it. It's unfortunately, I tell you what, I got to order another one of these, because then I don't want to give mine away. I don't want to, if I tell my relatives, they're going to say, well, send me yours. I say, well, no, not really. Looky-loos kind of go through and hit the link and go directly over to your website, and they say, I don't know, Dr. Deagle keeps on saying this is fantastic, and use it with his Nutrimeds, Collagen Max, Mountain Red Velvet, Inflamex, etc., Joint Performance Tendon Mender, then, for connective tissues. And by the way, this isn't just working for say, connective tissues in joints and carpal tunnel syndrome. This is for regenerating your liver. This is for regenerating your kidneys. In fact, let me give you a protocol. If I was going to tell somebody to regenerate their kidneys, and they've got, let's say took Arthrotec and they were diabetic and they zapped their kidneys, and now their renal clearance is now 25% normal, and if they get down there to 20%, they're going to go on dialysis. And I'd say to them, first off, you get it on Vein-Away and ultrathymine B1. You start taking our nutraceuticals to regenerate the tissues, like microdose, etc. You take the specific Mountain Red Velvet, etc., to regenerate the tissues, and Myco D2. But then you slap those little electrodes directly over your kidneys, and you leave that sucker on all day long while you're awake, maybe even asleep. And guess what's going to happen over the next couple of months? Your kidney function is going to come back. And people say, you've got to be kidding. Well, the first thing you're going to see if you're spilling microalbumin is you're going to stop spilling it, because you're taking ultrathymine B1 and Vein-Away. You're taking other nutraceuticals to regenerate the tissue. So you're taking our copper Regenemax, which is going to help along with Nutrifos and Neurogen and regenerate the solid organs. You're taking the nutraceuticals to help Mountain Red Velvet, Collagen Max, etc., etc. But now you got the signal. You got the micropulse directly over your kidneys. Those stem cells, now that you're taking opening up a capsule of Mountain Red Velvet under your tongue 3 times a day, 4 times a day, and now you're taking the signal. Ooh. Now that signal, the noise ratio, the stem cells know what to do when they get off the freeway of your microcirculation, your kidneys, your nephrons are regenerating. You're no longer spilling microalbumin. Your creatinine clearance is improving. Same way with your heart. If you had congestive heart failure, if you had hypertension, they did research and they found that if you put the devices like the lumen photon over the kidneys, you can reduce PI1. I will often use both. Slap the micropulse on and put your lumen pads over your back, over your kidneys, or over your heart if it's your heart, or over your liver if you've had hepatitis. So it's not just for regenerating connective tissues, it's for regenerating your brain. Let's say you have vertigo. Maybe you've got a problem with post-traumatic brain injury because you're in a pugilist and mixed martial arts, so you played a contact sport and you're trying to regenerate your brain so you don't develop post-traumatic Parkinson's disease or other problems. These are all due to oxidative stress. The micropulse is going to help reestablish your blood-brain barrier and your metabolic activity of your brain tissue and raise the redox potential so your brain cells are going to generate a neural network. So it's not just for connective tissues. People think, well, this is just for my joints. No. This is for any tissue in your body, including getting your hair to grow back again, making your heart muscle restore normal mitochondrial function, along with our nutraceuticals for mitochondria, for regenerating your liver, your kidneys, your solid organs, your pelvis, your sexual organs if you had sexual dysfunction. Take care of things like Men's Max and Hormone Synergy and Enhanced for Man, etc., and apply the electrodes to the appropriate body parts, as I say, maybe even the naughty bits, to try to make sure that they start functioning again. People say, you're kidding. And I'm saying, I'm not kidding. Every tissue you want to regenerate, the micropulse will help regenerate it. That's pretty neat, isn't it?
Well, I think it's surprising. That's the thing. Now, as a scientist, for many, many years, I kept saying, well, no one thing should work this well in so many different systems.
But it does.
So we would test, and there it is. Yeah, it's working better and better. So we continue to do very aggressive testing.
We talked about this last time, that you actually consult with advanced laboratories. In fact, I think one of them was Wake Forest, that makes what's called 3D printing bioengines, and they wanted to create a morphogenic field so that when they're printing that 3D organ, whether it's a tubular organ like a blood vessel or a bladder, which they now can produce, but they're working toward printing what's called solid organs. And eventually they'll have the technology where they'll print a solid organ like a liver or a kidney, and they'll actually take some cells out of your body, build a matrix of collagen to print that collagen, then they'll actually infuse it with the extracellular matrix by printing it. And when you have if you want to call it a bioengine machine or incubator, it's going to have this field effect of Schumann resonance to increase the signal-to-noise ratio, so the stem cells will know what to do to actually differentiate into nephrons and kidneys or Kupffer cells in the liver. And that's where this technology is going. It's going to the point where we're going to be able to print organ replacements like a limb. If you lost an arm, we'll print an arm for you, and then we'll just infuse it with the right nutraceuticals and extracellular matrix so the stem cells know what to do, and the right signal to make them actually increase the signal-to-noise ratio so it actually regenerates. That's cool. And that's where we're going. We're going to have that science, kind of all the details worked out in the next 5 to 20 years. 5 to 20 years is all it's going to take for us to be able to make solid organ, not just tubular organ, but solid organ regeneration, like printing a new heart, new lungs, new tissue, even parts of brain. Maybe we'll be able to actually say someone's got a traumatic brain injury, we excise the damaged area or an area where a tumor was, infuse the new area of brain tissue and actually integrate it directly into your brain and interface it. We won't have to make you a cyborg. We'll actually be printing the tissue that is you out of your own cells grown in cell culture. Pretty cool, eh?
Well, I think it's very interesting. That's actually tissue engineering is the area where I do most of my scholarly work at the university, which is separate from my development of the ISIS micropulse system.
Right.
I've published, many papers in that area, and I've collaborated with people who are at Wake Forest and other areas. They mostly at Wake Forest, they do a lot of hollow organ, urogenital sort of tissue engineering, but I've published in probably half of the tissue systems that exist, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, ligaments, and just all kinds of gastrointestinal and all kinds of areas. And it's very interesting. One of the things that I've specialized in is developing bioreactors to apply the right signals to tissue to get them to grow. That's really my area of expertise. So you can imagine like a little muscle, what would it need to be healthy, and it needs mechanical signals, it needs electromagnetic signals, it needs chemical signals, and different tissues require different things, and so we build these systems called bioreactors to grow the tissues of interest. And there's active work being done in many different areas, and I'm still quite active in research in that area as well, academically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this whole science area and the collaboration, the amount of money and scientific brain power being put into actually doing this. For example, the average person on the illegal black market is $260,000 to get a kidney that will be from someone else that may not be tissue matched, and you have to be on immunosuppressive drugs the rest of your life. Whereas the idea of extracting, say, stem cells from your bone marrow, even they've now discovered ways of even taking skin cells and turn them into even male and female sex cells, believe it or not, gametes. So they can take a gamete literally from a skin punch biopsy of your skin, believe it or not. They'll soon be able to just take a sample of blood or whatever and take out the specific cells out of that, and then in a lab they'll actually bioengineer them to turn them into specific stem cell lines. Then you infuse extracellular matrix. Like I'm working with Mountain Red Velvet. I want to make 3 different we call nutrapharmaceuticals. I want to make not only strips but granules for surgical implantation. I want to make a liposomal version that can be given intravenously. When you have a bioengineered printed organ, you need the extracellular matrix because you need the transduction of ECM in order for that signal to actually signal through the cell-to-cell contact and the intracellular, extracellular proteins and matrices and genes. You need to have the ECM in order for the differentiation to occur. This is a deficiency that occurred at the University of Madison, Wisconsin, and the University of Minnesota, where they're doing work on what's called ghost organs, where they take, say, a sheep heart or a pig heart, and they'd remove all the cells from the organ like a heart, and then they would infuse them with human stem cells, and they actually found that they had a percentage of the cells would actually try to differentiate into cardiomyocytes.
Yeah, I've actually published quite a few papers in that area. And I can tell you it works extremely well. That's called tissue acellularization. And one of the reasons that it works so well is that when you remove the cells, the extracellular matrix itself across all people is identical, unless you have some sort of genetic disease.
Now, what happens is
you don't reject it. Your cells actually accept it as part of themselves, and they will build your own tissue right around it. That's how it works.
Isn't that cool? That's cool. Now, the Seed Corporation in Chicago is actually doing this we call ghost organs using pigs, where they actually are genetically engineered to create human-like organs, and then you remove all the pig cells, and then you can literally use that matrix to build, along with the ECM we're going to provide and the spectral frequency of the Schumann resonance from the micropulse and the bioengine to actually, in a sense, print a new heart for you, lungs, or a specific organ like kidneys. So that's what's coming, and the transplant surgeons won't need to have a deficiency in organs. They'll actually say, well, in 3 months we'll have your kidney ready for you. We're drawing your blood today. We're going to build your kidneys. In 3 months we're ready to go, or 6 months, whatever it is, to rebuild your kidneys or your heart. And you'll then wheel you into the room, pop the new heart in you, and take out the old one, just like going down to your garage and pop out the old engine, old tires, and boom, you're ready to roll another 100,000 miles. Amazing.
Sounds great.